I made a video some weeks back talking about Heroes and Generals 2. You know, that massive game back in 2014, the free-to-play World War II shooter? Well, yeah, a sequel was being made. It was being ported and upgraded onto the Unreal Engine 5, and people were kind of mixed about it. In fact, people mostly wanted a sequel to Heroes and Generals. In fact, I think a lot of people were very excited about it, but there was one sticking point. This was an incredibly popular game, with the likes of Frankie on PC and the Yogscast making sponsored content for it back in the day. So why was there a Kickstarter for a sequel? This game was not small, it was one of the biggest on Steam when it first came out. Where did all the money go? That was the first red flag. The second was an actual look at some of the screenshots they were promoting. This was supposed to be a sequel, right? Unreal Engine 5 has given us some of the most beautifully, graphically insane projects that I have ever encountered in gaming. Yet why did Heroes and Generals 2 look so bad? Was it just down to a lack of funding currently, or a team that didn't really know what they were doing? Well, with the Kickstarter up and running, it was only a matter of time before things started to come out. They aimed for $2 million. This was not a small feat, not only with the caveats of wondering where the initial money came from Heroes and Generals in the first place, but why were they asking so much now? The Kickstarter itself was pledged by over 1,000 people, yet they barely passed $100,000 of that $2 million goal. The funding was unsuccessful, and it was not reached by their cutoff of the 14th of April 2023. Therefore, the project was stalled. The Kickstarter campaign was shut down, and they had this to say: "To our Heroes and Generals, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Though we did not hit our Kickstarter goal, we have high hopes that Heroes and Generals 2 will live on. We're in talks with several gaming publishers and other studios, but have no updates at this given time." One of the most interesting points is, why didn't they go down this route so far? It's not like they don't have anything to show for themselves. They have one of the most popular World War II shooters of all time. Why weren't publishers picking them up in the first place? Is this a different team? Well, kind of. They're actually bought out towards the end of their life. Heroes and Generals is not the same people as it was when it first released, and we saw a lot of that coming towards the downfall. To try and get a bit of that extra money at the end, microtransactions started to come in, things that didn't really fit within the game, that seemed like money-grabbing attempts to catch the last few falling pennies. Whether this was the case, we'll never know, but it didn't exactly help the sentiment of the title towards its community. They go on to say, "It was a pleasure to see many of the community members come together in a positive fashion. There will always be outliers who choose a different path for discussion, and to those, we appreciate you too." You're welcome, guys. No problem. The passion for this franchise is evident. What is also evident is that our player base is fractured, and we need to address that as well. At this time, we have no further comment other than thank you. So it seems like Heroes and Generals 2 is gone, right? Well, judging by the initial start to their statement, Heroes and Generals 2 is, well, we know it's still in development, or at least has been developed, so I doubt they're just going to shelve it forever. Funding definitely is necessary, or at least that's what it seems. Why they need that extra money seems like poor management through development, or at least monetarily. And that definitely didn't give people the hope and the faith in order to pledge towards this sort of thing. If you want to do a Kickstarter, you need a proof of concept and you need some pedigree behind you. Now, they did have a lot of pedigree, but being bought out in later years and then going on to say that they need $2 million for a new title so long after their first definitely didn't bring in a lot of confidence. Kingdom Come Deliverance had one of the most successful gaming Kickstarters of all time, and they showed what they were worth, bringing out proof of concept, screenshots, and even gameplay before they even set up their Kickstarter, with a target of $1 million, and they absolutely smashed it. They then gave constant updates onto the release, and they delivered a fantastic title that is still beloved to this day. Heroes and Generals 2 just didn't really do that. There wasn't the same transparency. There wasn't a lot of love behind this title. Even smaller things, from their trailer and announcement about Heroes and Generals 2 having a lot of dislikes but no negative comments. Now, you can never tell for sure, but it seems, at least to me and to a lot of people, that these negative comments were being deleted. It makes no sense for this terrible dislike ratio and then swathes of positivity. It also brings us on to the current Heroes and Generals. It's being shut down after all this time. There's no reason for them to shut it down other than a lack of money. This would also link to the fact that they're asking for so much for a sequel to an already successful game. Maybe it wasn't as successful as we all thought. I tapped out of Heroes and Generals just a couple years after its release. I had my fun, but that was it. It couldn't really offer anything else to me, but I know there was still a player base that stuck by it. Yet, looking at the recent player base and the recent talks of the community, people were starting to worry the direction of the game. If your game is going downhill, if community sentiment is lacking, it is not the right time to try and advertise for a second. Not just that, but a second crowdfunded, one that can only happen with community goodwill. That was never gonna work. So where does Heroes and Generals 2 go in the future? Well, as much as I think they're gonna want to carry it on, I think this is probably the last we see from it unless something big happens. A franchise that had a lot of potential seems to be very much mismatched. The gameplay that we saw of Heroes and Generals 2 was clunky, unprofessional, and looked like it was made by a small indie studio, if that. I mean, I've seen stuff made by indie studios that looks massively more improved and tight and polished than what this big name is. And don't get me wrong, this is a big name, yet it looks like one of the least polished and most arcadey FPSs that I've ever seen. Unreal Engine 5 was a nice tagline to put on it, but if you don't know how to use it, what's the point? I guess if the game has still had some work on it, we might see some form of it in the future, but right now, it looks like we're probably going to have to stick with something else. Enlisted, hey? It's a pretty decent title. Look, it's not great, and it's owned by Gaijin, who, well, they have their own issues. But it is free to play on the most part, and it is good for what it is. So I don't know in this day and age if there is really room for Heroes and Generals 2. That mantle has been passed over to another Russian-based company, so hey, whilst it's not sponsored, if you really care about free-to-play first-person shooters, play Enlisted. If not, play something good like Hell Let Loose. God damn it, the British are here. Right, we need to make videos on that. British time, thank you. I'm off to go and play a better game.